Hi, thanks for listening to my story about my creative journey. This is Delisa West, and I have a few slides to show you, and I'll just start talking. When I grew up in Seattle, in the south end of Seattle, actually, the neighborhood was called Riverton Heights. My dad and his parents were immigrants from Finland. So we did a lot of things differently there. We had three houses that were all on one property. My family lived in one house. My aunt and uncle lived in another house. My grandparents lived in the third house. And the year that I was born in 1955, my dad had a friend who worked on bowling alleys. And he said, "Hey, Bob, you can buy 2 lanes for $25. Do you want it?" And he said, "Sure." And then he and his friends built a bowling alley in our backyard. And here's a picture of them. That's when bowling was so cool. And my mom was on a league. So this in the picture from left to right, my dad, his sister Karen, my grandfather, and my mom. So it was super fun. We also had a steam bath and the chicken coop and 7 hazelnut trees and a big garden. So growing up in the family compound was super fun. And I've always thought it was okay to be creative. Since my dad was a cabinet builder, my mom later became a ceramic artist. And of course, crayons were in my life at a young age. I went to Gage Academy of Art and studied still life painting. So with Gary Fagan, the founder of the school. And this is one of the paintings I did when I was at school. Learned how to paint realistically. I started to paint kind of messily. This was a messy palette knife painting. Here's another painting from that time. I got enamored with this basement window I had in a house I lived in. So my studio was in the basement, and I would just say, "Ooh, that looks cool. Look at those bottles in the window." I painted a lot of shelf paintings. And then I got stuck on buckets for a while. I painted a lot of buckets. These remind me of the family compound because when I was in kindergarten, my grandma met me for coffee one day, and we drank coffee and had cookies in the bowling alley. I didn't like the coffee. I really liked the cookies though. My sister Anita is also an artist, and we share a studio together in Ballard. And for a while, and in fact, we're still on this road, we got interested in old family photographs and how we could make them into art. So on the left side of this image, you can see Anita's collages, and then behind her is one of my paintings. And we just are continuing along that really fun adventure. This image I pulled out of a newspaper. It's Hillary Clinton and her mom from a long time ago. This image I stole off of Facebook, 2 soccer kids. It's an image of me the day I got fired from being a manager of a real estate office. This is an image of me and my dad and a big salmon based on a black and white photo. This is also based on a black and white photo of my Aunt Karen and her husband at the beach. And when I showed it to her, she said, "Oh, I remember that day. There was a whale on the beach and it was really stinky." That's from my high school yearbook. And here's the image plus the painting I made of it, of my dad and my grandpa. And a mystery dog. I don't remember that dog. Maybe that's the dog they called Penny. Here's a girl and a cat. That's also based on a childhood photo. And here, these 2 paintings that I did with my sister, where I painted on them and then she painted on them and then I painted on them and then she painted on them. And then at a certain point, we decided they were done. And it's based on the same image of the three girls standing in front of the grandma's house with their little fuzzy fur hats on. Here's another image from a childhood photo. Another one. Another collaboration I did with Anita. That was fun. A couple years ago, I joined this challenge to draw something for every day for 30 days. And I have to say, I haven't stopped. So every day, at least once, I post something on my Instagram account. And they're just little doodles that I make on scraps of paper. Sometimes I save them. Sometimes I don't. And when I was in art school, Gary Fagan once said, you should just draw all the time. I have a sketchbook. He said, I sketch when I'm in the synagogue. No one tells me not to. So I started doing that, just kind of given permission by him. Just drawing with, this one was drawn with ballpoint pens and white gel pens. So I take a notebook with me wherever I go. Sometimes if I'm listening to people talk, I will write down what they say, and it'll be in one of my sketches. Here's a sketch next to a list of things to do. That one I think I did with my left hand. I really like adding water to my sketches. So that's how I get these ink washes. I just draw with a water-soluble pen and add water. See that? I'm still stuck on the window there. I was at a meeting. It was boring. The guy talking was saying profits are squeezed. Sometimes I write down notes like, why don't cows? I wonder if cows eat psilocybin mushrooms and that's why they look so spaced out. I think that's what I was thinking there. Another left-hand drawing. Yes, couldn't stop. I'm still doing a drawing a day or more. This is another thing I like to do is do writing and then draw over it and then add water. It doesn't matter what the writing is because it gets obscured. I also teach creativity classes in my Doodle Like an Artist classes. I really miss my ladies. I was teaching at a couple of retirement homes and they had so much fun with collage here. We were using collage that day. In fact, this woman on the left gave this collage. Her daughter wanted her to give it to her for Christmas that year. Now I teach online because I can't be in person right now. And yeah, sometimes I get colored pencils out. Since COVID started, I've been making these drawings that I started out just writing things down and then drawing over them. And then I decided I had a barn door in my apartment, and I could put a really big piece of paper up on it. So I started making them about 6 feet by 4 feet. And they're really like my doodles, only they're big and they have words, and some of them are really weird. Like, I don't know if this is a human or an animal. They're skating. Maybe they're a snake. I don't know what that is. Here's another image with words and a bird. I've made some paintings as well in that same kind of multimedia way where there's images and words. And this will give you a reality on how big the drawings are. I'm calling them my COVID angels. I draw on both sides of the paper. So my dream is to have a show where I have these drawings hanging in a suspended in space and you can walk around them. Some kind of warehouse. I'm looking for a space to do that once we can all get together again. And I also have some of this art up in a storefront in Bellevue, and which is interesting. I thought these drawings were really big until they go into a wall that's a lot taller than 6 feet, and then they don't look so big anymore. There you go. You can find me, a D. Lisa West artist, on social. If you're listening, do you have any questions for me? You do?
I was wondering, what do you always use like the same type of pen to get that ink wash? 'Cause, like, you'd have to know that it's something that's water soluble, right?
You know what I tell people when they go? I said, if I go to a store, you can find it in just a regular office supply store. So I try out the pens and then I lick my finger and I touch the paper, and if it smears, it's water soluble. Although some gel ink pens, if they haven't dried yet, they'll smear, but they're not water soluble.
Right.
So I use a Pilot G2. They're refillable. A flare pen. Those are fun, but they get dried up. And then there's also a pen Pilot. There's something that's like a fountain pen, but it's a disposable fountain pen.
Oh yeah, Pilot has those.
Yeah, I think it's a Pilot too. So yeah, I also.
They look like this.
I also use this to put the water on. So it's a water brush that you can fill up. And that way I can just keep a pen and this in my play with this Derwent graphite. So it's a sketching pen. They come in light, medium, or dark wash. But if you're going to really use it for the wash, I would use the dark. And for my big pieces, I'm trying, I started out using the same pens for the big pieces, but I would go through 2 pens to make one piece. They'd run out of ink. So now I'm using this. I don't remember what it's called. It's got a Japanese name. It's a brush pen. Fura something.
Yeah, I know what brand that
is. And the other thing with this is they have refills, but the refills aren't all that big either. So I've got a bunch of them. But this is also water soluble. And depending on which paper you use, it either makes a beautiful ink wash or it doesn't really wash at all. Some of the papers are very absorbent. Yeah.
What kind of papers are you using for the really big pieces?
I have, I'll tell you. The brown craft paper and this Canson XL mixed media. Because it's actually one of my favorite sketchbooks anyway.
Me too, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a really nice paper. It will take a lot of abuse and still hold together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's what I was thinking, yeah.
Yeah, and every once in a while I'm thinking, I put a lot, like this one that's behind me, I put a lot of ink on the front, and then I was like, I wonder if that went to the back. But it didn't. Because if I'm going to do both sides, I don't want the first side to be affecting the other side, unless I want it to, right?
Yeah. So do the sides go together? Are they two? Okay, so they're just unrelated.
Sometimes the shapes are similar, because what I do is I put the paper up and then I look at it for a long time. And then I think, what does it want to be now? I talk to it like it's a pet or a friend or something.
Yeah.
I'm like, you want legs? Okay. So I look at it for a long time and then I see a shape in there and I draw that. And sometimes when I've done a drawing and it's got things on it, when I flip it over, then the paper's got wrinkles.
Yeah.
And so that kind of makes a different image emerge for me.
Neat.
Cool.
Do you have any questions, Phil?
I wondered what the origins were for the challenge. Was it Artist League?
Oh, that was Ruthie V. Ruthie V with the Seattle Artist League. She did that a couple years ago, maybe even 3. She does it every January. So she says draw for 30 days in January and get going. And her prompts were really fun. It was like crumple up a piece of paper and draw it. Open up your fridge and draw what's inside. That kind of thing. So it gave you an idea of what to draw. Although a few times I was like, no, I'm not going to draw that. Whatever the prompt was didn't resonate with me. But it was a beautiful way to get started. Yeah. And almost everyone can do something for 30 days without feeling like it's too much of a burden.
And then it gets to be like that habit, right? So
now I'm just like, I have to do it because I need something for Facebook.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that my face. Let's see how many images I put up. I have 2,575 posts. So that probably, and I think I started out just, right at the beginning of doing a drawing a day. But that's more than 3 years worth of drawings, isn't it? Quite a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, if I'm watching a movie at night, I have my sketchbook. I'm sketching the faces of the people. If I'm out somewhere, I always have a sketchbook in my purse. So it's fun.
And so did I catch correctly that you're back at Ballard Works?
Yes, my studio's at Ballard Works. For a while, I was at Magnuson, and it just took me too long to drive there. Although I have to say, the city of Seattle was beautiful to artists during the pandemic. They did not charge us rent.
Oh, wow.
0 rent if you're an artist or a nonprofit. So coming back to Ballard Works was a bit of a shock because now they didn't do the same thing there. I'm paying them.
Yeah.
But I really like Ballard Works and the artists that are there, and I can just walk there, and the location is so perfect because if you want to just take a break from your studio, you walk across the street and you're at the locks. And that's, I finally walked through the locks the other day and found a part of the park that I had never looked at. I never walked the whole loop around the garden before.
Yeah, like you get kind of on the Golden Garden side, and there gets to be less people over there.
Yeah.
I'd like to take classes there to do drawing.
Yeah, that's a beautiful place to go. Yeah, and then the Rose Garden is a great place to take classes too, at the locks. Yeah. Neat.
This spring was my first time to really capitalize on all the blooms and the flowering trees, and I really loved going over there. Yeah,
it was so pretty. It's just there's still things. Obviously, it's an arboretum, so they've really planned out what goes next to what goes next to what underneath what. So I noticed just the other day I was there and something was all bloomed out, but then there was something right next to it that was about to start blooming, and something right next to that was going to bloom in some different color. So I thought, whoever planted those together was an artist, painting with their color palette of flowers and trees. Yeah.